Good evening, listeners on 933 KFM. This is the Friday Hotseat that wraps up the usual events of the week. I'm sitting in this show. I should have actually been like a panelist, but I'm now hosting the show. But anyway, been on the show for quite some time. So this is Timothy Kaligira, who's basically going to host this evening. And this evening, well, we've had a lot of interesting political events over the last 3-4 months. Since the wrangles in the FDC last year, but this particular evening, as many know, is somewhat interesting in terms of national developments. So my panel is going to be Jimmy Adoki, seated to my left. There's Frank Mujimba here, and Rogers Magala seated opposite me here. Rogers from the Daily Monitor newsroom. We're wrapping up the week's events, and the biggest, of course, is the cabinet reshuffle announced yesterday. The minor cabinet reshuffle. But of course the biggest story, the biggest talking point, which is the lead story on the Saturday Monitor that's already out now, is Museveni balancing act in Muhoozi rise, which is of course, yes, the appointment of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba as the Chief of Defense Forces, which many people, including the media, seem to think is a very big story, and many of us, or at least a few of us, think is not a very big story.
It was expected? That's what you're saying?
Not just that it was expected. It is, as I've been arguing on all day on Twitter, when has Muhoozi Kainerugaba not been the CDF? You just tell me. Those of you who know Uganda, who listen to his talk show on air, off air, ever since he returned.
So when has he been the CDF?
What I'm explaining is when has Muhoozi not been the CDF? If there's anybody who's older than 20 in Uganda over the last 5, 10, 20 years, when has Muhoozi never been?
He has not been the CDF, not until he is now.
The voice, by the way, speaking, that's Frank Mujimba, but go on. He has not been until now. Yes, if you believe in formalism, yes, he's just become the CDF now. Those who truly understand Ugandan politics history over the last 30, 40 years, the last 20 years, anybody who knows a paper like the Monitor or a radio station like KFM that goes beyond the surface, surely. We know, for example, for many years, at the risk of becoming both a panelist and a moderator, but we know that ever since Museveni took power, it was first the Presidential Protection Unit for many years. In the late 90s, it becomes the Presidential Guard Brigade. Then over, I guess, a decade or so ago, it becomes the Special Forces Command. The Special Forces Command, for all the Ugandans who are listening in, would be the equivalent in the means time, or Idi Amin's time, of the malaria mechanized regiment, some kind of like a heavily mechanized, the Republican Guard of Iraq and Iran, the special elite force within the army. The SFC has the best equipment, training, top soldiers, etc., and it's almost like a 5th Army division in and of itself. The commanding officer of the SFC is practically, for all intents and purposes, the army commander of Uganda. Muhoozi has been the head of the SFC at some stage. He then was head of the land forces. But if you know Uganda, as I say, let's stop being academic as if this is already Uganda.
But I think you're looking at the privileges that he has assumed as the president's son.
Anyway, so Frank, to ask you a question before you begin, when has Muhoozi not, for all intents and purposes, been the CDF?
Tim, I think Muhoozi has not been the CDF of Uganda until yesterday when he was named. So he has not been one. So Muhoozi has been, I think he has been a commander. I think he was a commander of SFC. He was a commander land forces, but he had not been given an opportunity to manage the entire military as a whole. So this is the new leadership of the UPDF. And yes, I know what maybe you're trying to look at. Okay, let's not try to hide behind certain things. Muhoozi has aspirations of becoming the president of Uganda. So I think even it is clear to the father that his son wants to become. He has aspirations to become, and it is legitimate. He has all the rights. If he goes through the processes, he can become president of Uganda. So I think the father knows that, and that is why he has given him this opportunity. He has given him the opportunity because he has served as in several positions. So he has given him the opportunity to be the commander of all military forces in Uganda. So he has been, but of course this comes at a time when some of even during the military, I think it is called military establishment, so on the 17th of February, when some of the powers of the CIC, Commander-in-Chief, were transferred to that office. I think maybe that is what you refer to. But let's give him an opportunity. Let's see how he manages the army. In other words, it is another appointment, like the one of Mbadi was, like the one of Moz was. So it is any other. It's like any other appointment.
Jimmy, please don't disappoint me like the speaker, and also give me this government media center kind of angle. So your views on who's becoming CDF? I beg you, please don't disappoint me. This is not Mega FM in Gulu.
Like you already preempted or said at the beginning, he's been, maybe not formally, informally, he has all the powers as son of the president. He's been acting in that. We always say is this formal, Mbadi, but I think Mozi was more powerful than Mbadi, and all the other generals.
Or just to maybe help you that, because question, which army general in Uganda or army officer of any kind do you know today who would celebrate his birthday the way Mozi Kainerugaba did in 2022 and gets away with it? A statement on Radio Buganda in 2005 by Brigadier Henry Tumukonde lands him in 8 years of house arrest. And this is a man whose wife is a cousin to the First Lady. Statements he made on NBS TV in 2021 when he was running for the presidency, remember, about if our Rwanda would get interested in Uganda's affairs, landed him in another round of arrest. Which officer do you know would do all this birthday business that Moses has been doing and get away with it? So just name one that you know.
None that I know of, but Muhoozi is the first son, so...
But what's wrong with celebrating the birthday, general celebrating the birthday?
Like I said, if had I known, social media, because of the way they've been bringing out all these documents in so-called parliament exhibition, social media has now become the new WikiLeaks for Uganda. So when you have all that information on social media, it's almost an anticlimax to go back to traditional media and listen to people frank with all this talk of, the first son, like any other Ugandan, has the right to be president. Sorry to cut you short, Jimmy. You still now develop your point as a KFM panelist, not as a government media center.
But even if you're here as a panelist, you have to be wary of what can happen. So anyway, Muhoozi has all the privileges. He's doing things. The appointment is just to make it formal, but he's been acting in as CDF of the UPDF. He has, if you this is Mwenda says when you're here you should speak with clarity. You read in the Saturday Monitor that he even has the convoy, the presidential convoy that he has access to, that no other person, not the vice president, not the chief justice. So what is happening is now what Frank alluded to is preparation for his aspiration, or what father and son think might be, in case anything happens. Where does it find him?
In case what happens?
In case of any eventualities.
Rogers, let me see, you, one of these people born around the time Besigye first ran for president. What do you think of this? In a Monitor sense, not in this media center speak.
I think the first person that brought it to our attention was Tinye.
Who is Tinye?
Tinye Funza.
Don't speak slang, yes. General David
Tinye Funza.
Okay.
In Sejusa with the Muhoozi project.
He wasn't the first time, actually. It was, if you're talking about 2013 or 2006.
Yeah, but at least he had the courage as a general.
Everybody, this paper called The Monitor, from the day, even from the time at the time of his wedding, The Monitor was hinting it is get married July 1999. The following month, go to Sandhurst as a preparation.
Yeah, but regardless, it's taking shape, and I think
The Monitor was the first one to come.
The Sejusa. So Monitor might not have carried the cloth of publishing the story.
Don't read The Monitor,
but when we come to see how this script has been taking shape, I would agree with you that it's not shocking that he is the CDF right now. But to me, I feel it wasn't time yet to make him CDF. There is a plan that is being followed, grooming Muhoozi Kainerugaba to become president of this country at some point. So having the declaration, the appointment made yesterday, it was just an icing of the cake of what has been going on.
Okay, am I allowed to stop being a moderator and become a panelist?
Please.
You can. You can.
Okay, have you been, those of you who might be on Twitter, have you been seeing what I was saying this morning on Twitter? Not that I'm an authority, but I'm just saying, you see what I said so I don't repeat myself?
No, you can
Okay,
repeat.
basically, last week I wrote a post after this rally, or what they call the baraza of the
Massacre.
the PLE.
PLU.
It's PLU.
PLE dropouts. Sorry, PLU. Okay, then. After that group of PLE dropouts around Muhoozi had this rally in sorry, let me just say it's PLU in Masaka had this rally, and my view was, most of you look at it on the outside, rally, you see latest town is now Masaka, and what's Masaka? Heart of Buganda. So now Muhoozi has gone beyond his peripheral rallies. He's now entering the heart of Buganda. He's now beginning to take on Buganda. His wife, child, is wearing traditional Uganda suti. Next it will be Mbarara, then Soroti, then town after town. He's now on roll. But someone like me, who's been, I guess, following this thing from day one, had a contrary view. My view was, if you listen to Muhoozi carefully, Masaka, he was not the normal Muhoozi. The normal Muhoozi of his birthdays on Twitter has been focusing attention on himself. I am the next president. You see people saying next president, retweeting things. He's been the next president with those t-shirts on social media, and he basking in that glory. In Masaka, it's different. He's now turning attention away from himself. He's like the John the Baptist of the Bible. He's saying, no, don't focus on me. Focus on he who are baptized. He's the one coming after me. So he kept saying, people, don't elect corrupt leaders, support the president's plans, support the president. He focused away from himself to the president, where he's been focusing attention on himself. His wife, I think, not knowing these details, came with this general view of, hey, this thing actually is for real. And she began talking in the sense of, I know my husband, all these years I've known him, he doesn't make corruption and all that. But people like me already knew what was coming. And that's why I said in one of the tweets, I said, looking forward to next week, it has dawned on Muhoozi that this is the beginning of the end. For all this idea of I'm a self-made man and everything, his father's going to trim his wings. And just a few days later, we get the announcement. In other words, according to me, to just stop speaking tongues, Muhoozi and his father and his uncle, General Saleh, alternatively and alternating in various ways, are the three top military commanders of the Uganda Armed Forces. Muhoozi has been a CDF essentially since he returned from Sandhurst.
So what do you mean by trimming his wings?
Yes, that's
if
what
he's
I'm getting
still
to.
in the
No, I'm just trying to say that, in other words, Muhoozi becoming a CDF is not a new fact. It's not saying anything. It's a bit like these companies that, jobs have already been taken, but adverts are just put out in the papers, for the sake of formality. So from the public's point of view and those who look at things on the surface, he's become a CDF. Wow, breaking news. You can see all the international news channels, Reuters, all talking about President San made CDF. And those of us who know say, but if you know Muhoozi, which is why he said nothing since he so-called became CDF, Muhoozi is deflated because he has been CDF all along. In this
How can you be deflated when you're,
No, what I'm trying to say, but Muhoozi, even if Museveni told his daughter Natasha, Muhoozi's sister, to go and chair an army high command meeting in Bombo, said just sit down, go with his notes, listen to them, speak to them. Natasha Museveni can chair the army high command meeting. I'm trying to say, in under Museveni, NRM Uganda, titles don't matter very much. So now it's to Muhoozi, to we, the general public and the BBCs and CNNs, President San becomes CDF. They're thinking about Uganda as if it's the Western world or other countries or systems. It's like a big step confirming that. But those of us who know what's going on actually know this for Muhoozi is a disciplinary action. He has been essentially, like I said on Twitter, he's been made CDF to tie him down,
So
walk him down. And then his people,
Mock him down from what?
and then those lieutenants around him, the Lily and the Bears and the others, the Balaam,
They are
the
lieutenants.
Harris, those have been like co-opted into Museveni's cabinet to also get tied down now. In other words, in summary, before we go for the break, Museveni has broken up the MK movement. The way is there will be no...
PLU.
What is the
Surprisingly
major move?
not.
Like, you know,
That's
this,
what I'm telling you.
Surprisingly
Museveni has
not.
Let's go for the ad break and you'll see more of this. This is KFM Friday.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m. KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Yes, welcome back, listeners, to the 953 KFM Hot Seat. This is Timothy Kaligira, the usual noise maker, with Rogers Magala just seated opposite me from the Daily Monitor. There's Frank Jimba here, who's now become a regular commentator. And of course, Jimmy Doki will wrap me up the week's news, which really is just one big story everybody's talking about, every front page story. CNN, Reuters, Associated Press, BBC. President of Uganda makes his son the head of the army, and to some it raises concerns about the succession. In others, everybody sees it as, wow, the big thing has finally happened. Now next, we're going to announce the presidency. And people like me are saying, no, actually, that's a demotion, if you know what's happening in Uganda today. Who wants to pick up from this? Frank,
Tim,
from what I told you in the break, which the audience is not supposed to know, tell me what you
Tim,
think now.
this is what I think. I think I have, it would be a different view, but somehow similar. Like I started by saying that Muhoozi himself, he has aspirations of becoming the president of this country. Now, what has happened is that, like I said, he has been he has been given he has commanded SFC, he has been commander land forces, and these you can call them subdivisions of the entire UPDF army. But now he has been given the opportunity to overlook the military entirely. Now this is what I'm reading. I think anybody who wants to become a president of Uganda, who wants to rule Uganda, there are two constituencies that you must have that you must have before you. There are cards that you must play. You must have the army on your side, not only here in Uganda but in Africa entirely. Then you must also, if we are to go through this democracy system that we go through, then you must win also the hearts of the citizens on your side. But first, it is the army. Now he has been given that responsibility. The responsibility he has is to win the army on his side. I don't think he had, because you would hear...
He's actually been annoying the army.
Yes, you could say that.
The risk of UCC people coming. He's actually not just been, he actually risk over the last 2 years. He's actually really been angering.
Of course, not annoying them as such, but you know, there are these big boys, these generals who felt that they were superior than him. Who felt that maybe they were there before him, so they should have they should have been given the opportunity first than him. So for me, what I'm looking at is how this new general can be able to condense all these tones and win the army in its entirety, including even what you would call retired generals, onto his side. So once he has that constituency, then now, because like what I disagree with you is saying that PLU has been deflated. I believe PLU is going to continue because it has its own mobilizers. Actually, I don't think he will even be appearing on their what you call barazas to give these statements, because now he is engaged elsewhere. So these people are going to continue with the drive. But the likes of Kabanda,
the some of the key people in PLU have been disabled by being.
It is only Balam and I think Lilian Abel. But I don't think that you being in NRM, because you've been seeing them, including some of the big people even who sit on I think SEC. So they have been appearing on this barazas. So I don't think the appointment of Balam, who is one of the biggest mobilizers that I actually know, I don't think appointing him as a cabinet minister will stop him from appearing on these barazas to mobilize for the new CDF. So the two constituencies will be running the army with the Muhoozi, and then the other mobilizers, the other side, trying to mobilize citizens on his side. So it might even turn out that in the next elections you might find that PLU as a pressure group has more members of parliament, has more what you would call opposition members of parliament. So that even if we went into the parliamentary system, now after PLU has been registered as a political party and the CDF has retired, so you find that even if we went into the choosing a president using parliament, they will have the numbers. But also, if it doesn't go that way, and they have the other option of mobilizing citizens behind the general, and by the time he retires, then he can be able to take over easily.
Rogers, you sit in the Monitor newsroom. What's your take on this?
My take, I don't agree with you.
With me or with Frank?
With you, when you say that the appointment of Muhoozi as CDF is a demotion.
Why don't agree with me? Not that you must not.
Exactly, but what I see is, to me, there is order and some sense of direction in this appointment that come away from being a presidential advisor and all the casualness that has been coming with it, and talking anyhow, engaging with public anyhow. But then when it comes to the CDF, he has a responsibility ahead of him. He has to take care of the army, which is much different than what he has been doing right now. So to me, it is a step he has taken ahead, eyeing to what he's being groomed to become. So what Frank said, and which I want to divert a little bit from, is saying that Muhoozi has aspiration. He has been having aspirations of becoming president. But for me, I want you to know that it's not been Muhoozi's priority. It has been the CIC's dream of having a successor in Muhoozi. So whatever he's doing, it's him grooming, and whenever he sees that he will be going astray, he will be bringing him back to order. Now, when we come back to PLU, whether it's been deflated or not, we would like to know what are the aspirations of PLU as an establishment. I don't want to call it a party.
Just hangers on.
I don't want to call it a party.
Without Muhoozi, we'll fade into no activity. That's what's going to happen, but please continue.
Yeah, I don't want to call it a party and a pressure group, but it's more of a social club that is riding on the prominence of General Muhoozi. But then the danger with it is it can build a hunger or a lust for power into Muhoozi, especially right now when the CIC is advancing in age.
You better say commander-in-chief, because not everyone stands.
Yeah, the commander-in-chief.
Also the president.
Of the president. Right now, the danger with this establishment, it can create or build a very strong desire of taking power from the father, from the president. So, but when you look at its intentions as an establishment, they don't have any intention of taking power as PLU.
Jimmy, please help us and depart from this to give us a typical monitor kind of view, the one that gets the monitor in trouble. The government closed it for 3 weeks.
I really want the monitor to get into trouble.
To be fun, you know.
Yeah, like you've said, I think PLU will still be, with Muhoozi, even as CDF, he may not do things the way his predecessors have been doing. He can depart. He has the privileges. He may not be the typical, he can still do his political things if he wanted. But what we would like to know is whether Muhoozi and the father think Muhoozi will be his successor in the family. Are there, what is it? Is it him? Is it working together? Do they see, work in tandem, or he sees a threat elsewhere and wants to fight on and thinks he deserves to be,
Now, Jimmy, you finally begin to talk. That's the bigger question. Where is all this going, and As I said, the trouble with some of these things, the kind which if you blatter them up in the air, then, well, people start saying, you become like this Anderson Brola, which, well, let's not give Anderson Brola, that's another big stories a week. But that said, the thing is, I still just must say, there's been a great deal of tension within that family over this whole question of Muhoozi. Now, I won't give you the details, but I'll give you what at least we can see in the general public. Has any of you noticed that Masaka was the first time Charlotte Kainerugaba, wife of Muhoozi Kainerugaba, attended any of his rallies or events? Just go through, at least it's not controversial, just go through mentally all the Ugandan newspapers, social media. Birthday party, State House, no. Kololo Airstrip, no. Lugogo, no. Various, rallies all over the country. Ever since Charlotte there, no, Masaka is the first place. So that's just a sign. Then two, in all this Muhoozi birthday, PLU, MK movement, parties, movements, rallies and whatnot, apart from Muhoozi, have you seen any other member of the first family? That immediate first, I will not talk about Museveni's brother Toyota, but we'll talk about the State House as in what the Rakitura first family. Have you seen any of those Natasha's, Diana's there? No. So that, before we go for the break, is something for you, the panelists, the uninformed panelists, and the nice audience listening in.
I hope we are not going into a break right now after throwing that bombshell.
No, but yes, also, but think about it, at least as I say, just give it some thought. This, it's always everyone else.
You see, Tim, that
somehow
that is not sufficient enough for you to conclude and say there is a rift within the.
No, I'm just asking. I've just asked you a question.
But you seem to be heading.
I'm just telling you. If you know the way these people behave, if you know the sense, if you have seen those Christmas photos of theirs, Easter photos, if you know the way they present themselves as a traditional family over the big days of Christmas, Easter, that all roads lead to Rakitura and all these grandchildren there around the president and the first lady. If you know that side to them 70 family, don't you think with all these crowds and crowds of people and he being propped up as the next in waiting, don't you think Natasha would turn up at least one of those events? And two, have you ever seen the president there? No. Seen the first lady there? No. When Patience Robogo, sister of Muhoozi, she had an event in Kigumo Gulu, one of those her church-related events last year. Remember, the first lady and the president arrived. President, first lady haven't come for any of those Muhoozi events. Even General Saleh, who you remember is one who essentially decorated Muhoozi when he became general. Have you seen General Saleh at any of those Muhoozi events? Nope. Let's go for the break now. This is 93 KFM. Back after the break.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues. 933 KFM. The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, the monitor audience, lawyer audience, thank you for tuning in. Sitting opposite, this is Timothy Kaligera, by the way, sitting in for Andrew Mwenda. Wrapping up the week's news. There's Frank Mujimba here, there's Rogers Magala sitting opposite me, and there's Jimmy Adoke here to wrap up this news. During the break, one of the panelists here, I won't say who, was quite concerned. He said he was concerned about some of my so-called conspiracy theories, which seem to suggest that Muhoozi, it's no longer just an automatic law of the land and the family that you're going to be the successor. And this person asked, so who would be Muhoozi, if not Muhoozi? And so my view anyway has been, as I said earlier, there have been tensions in the system. There's just no pretending about this.
In the system or in the family?
In the system, and especially the family. But as I said on Twitter this afternoon, Muhoozi, I wrote once, I think on Twitter, saying that in 1984 to 85, there were tensions in the core of the Uganda state, which was the UNLA, tensions between the people from officers from Acholi and Langu. The difference under the NRM now, because power is being centered around not the army as it was in Obote II or 1971 that caused the coup, but around the Museveni family. It doesn't matter how many fights take place within the army, police, ISO, and the other services. The real power, the actual Ugandan government, the actual UPDF high command is the Museveni family, what you call the Rakitura family. Yoweri Museveni, what red people calls his bedmate, Janet Museveni, those children, Uncle Saleh, Auntie Jovia, that world, that sowing the mustard seed group photo, Christmas photo, that is the actual center of power in Uganda. And as long as that family remained one unit all these years, you could have all these student riots, walk to work, the monitor being closed, all this general chaos in Uganda, but that's where the core power was. Now, this arrival of Muhoozi as a tweeting general, as we began calling him, and all those antagonistic tweets of his and all that, unknown to many people, was causing tension in that actual center of power in Uganda. And that's why I've been asking these questions. I've been saying, if you know these people, they present themselves as a traditional Christian military family, but who observe all those days, Easter, New Year, they're in Wakaturu, not in Kampala. It's usually one group photo we see, photos by the PPU, etc. And I just said, has any of you noticed no sign of Moses' wife at any of those rallies until massacre? None of his siblings, none of those girls, and Natasha's, Diana's, Patience. And then also, now to answer the question of the person who asked in the studio, who I'll not mention, who's looking at me and hopes I don't mention him. But here's another thing, let me ask you. At that State House dinner in 2 years ago, when President Kagame of Rwanda appeared, you noticed there was, Muhoozi was there with his many of his friends, his Kisubi and other friends, but there was no Audrey Krobogo and Patience.
Yes.
And then 2 years later, the following year, I think, when Audrey Krobogo and this sounds like I'm almost getting gossipy and petty, but I'm just trying to get a picture. And when, was it near Lake Mburo National Park in Mbarara district? Or what's the district around Lake Mburo? You know this, Frank.
Are you talking about Chulhura?
That district. Anyway, when they had the 20th wedding anniversary of Audrey, later that year, Audrey and Patience, you noticed there was no Muhoozi?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask another question. Have you noticed that every time there is an event where there's Audrey, there's no Muhoozi, and when there's Muhoozi, there's no Audrey?
Are you saying the rift is between Muhoozi and Wabogo?
But you follow social media. You saw it on Muhoozi's own handle.
Social media is not an official.
No, I'm saying Muhoozi, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, in his Twitter handle, essentially dismissing a person called Audrey by name. I'm not creating stories out of the blue. These things you saw. So I'm not. So those things about when there is wherever there's one, there's not. Okay, start following all the events from now onwards. Every time there's a major event where there's Muhoozi, somehow there's no Audrey. Christmas 2023, Waktura group photo. You saw Audrey. Yes, you saw Patience. Are you, from what I've just told you, you can go on your phones and check for that photo.
I don't know that. I know Muhoozi.
For me.
So in other words, I'm just, the argument I'm trying to make for the listeners and you people here, wherever there's Audrey and Patience, there's no Muhoozi. Wherever there's Muhoozi, there's no Audrey.
So it's up to you to make.
If you think I'm exaggerating this, you can go through your searches through the newspapers, or you can start following the news from now onwards, and you notice wherever those two are, one isn't there at the other's event. So there's been a serious tension.
It's true, and Audrey has come out very many times to say like we won't allow anybody that is outside the NRM structures to assume power and so forth. But for me, I don't think that is enough to conclude that whatever rift is within the core cell of the family is actually making the president have sleepless nights.
But that's what it actually is.
For me, I'll say,
the president always has sleepless nights. Not how to worry, but
but this is not one of the issues. This is not one of the issues that will give him.
It's actually very much.
But for me,
now, Rogers, let me just help you people. Actually, that's the sleepless nights this has been giving him.
But we all agree that there is only one anointing master.
I'm just telling you, moment. So at this stage now, this is where you need to listen to people who just know these things, and let's stop beating about
not only know who have met them before, both parties.
And I guess we're also crazy enough to say them without worrying. But anyway, here's the point. The point is this, that in every state there is center of power. As I said, UNLA was the center of power. The Choli Langi axis of Obote 2, when it fell apart in July 1985, is when the Obote government fell apart. But tension had been there, UPC factions and all these things within themselves. But as long as the Choli Langi center of the Ugandan state under the UPC was intact, that was okay. Now the army here, even when there are disagreements, that doesn't matter, but the true center of power has now moved to that first family, the Museveni's family. And those tensions have been for real. You could see, if you know the President Museveni, you really think it was his pleasure to write a letter to the Kenyans apologizing on behalf of his grown-up son's behavior. If you think what it must have taken.
No, that was serious.
Okay, so I'm just telling, when you see that there's this serious war taking place in Ethiopia between the Tigrayan rebels and the central government, the Uganda government officially supports the Addis Ababa government, Muhoozi Kainerugaba is supporting what he calls our Tigray brothers. You think, from a foreign policy point of view, the ambassadors are calling from various countries. When in March or February, a few days after this invasion of Ukraine by Russia, when Muhoozi goes and says, Africa must stand by Russia, they stood by us during all this, the Cold War, the days of apartheid and all this, you think all those phone calls from various Western embassies to State House seeking clarification will please the president?
No, they wouldn't.
That would mean that the president already knows that he has an errant son. Then why would he go ahead and anoint him as a CDF?
Because I've just told you from the start of the show, he has not been anointed CDF. He's under the RPF and NRA. The formula has always been, they know we're very surface people. That's to their credit. These people thought a bit deeper than normal. They know that most people see things at the surface. So in other words, it was Yusuf Lay will be chairman of the NRM, Museveni will be the vice chairman, but chairman of the high command. Like what you, Frank, just said, the real power is with the army. Enter the RPF in 1994. Colonel Alexis Kanyerengwe is the chairman of the RPF, who is a Hutu, so he plays with the general population, the majority, like the way Yusuf Lay is Muganda appeasing the Baganda, but Kagame is the vice chairman and chairman of the all-important high command. So under this NRM RPF ideology, these appearances just don't matter. Most of you have had references to John Kazora's book.
You see,
the CDF in Uganda can be a lieutenant colonel seated somewhere in, let's say, in Soroti, and he commands the army. Now, with Uganda under RPF, Rwanda, and NRA Uganda, you don't look at official positions. Alice Kaboyo, the Minister of Luwero Affairs, is a cousin of Janet Museveni. Alice Kaboyo, her one phone call can open doors for you more than the entire cabinet of Uganda combined. That's the way this thing is structured. And if you don't understand that, and people of the Monitor World, KFM, should understand this, then you keep looking at the surfaces. So in other words, I'm trying to say to those of you who look at it as, wow, he's now become a CDF, I began the show by asking, when has Muhoozi never been?
Okay, fine. Who else in the nucleus family of the first family yields the same power like Muhoozi?
And I also am repeating this other point I made on social media, but I'll state today. I said that for all this bluster and all this hype around Muhoozi, even Muhoozi is just his son's father. And that's a very, very important point. And so he's been coming out, yes, this is me and myself. I remember that tweet of his, nobody, in capital letters, will stop me from tweeting what I want. You remember that famous one?
Yeah.
But somehow there's been so much going behind the scenes. And that's what I told you. Please go back, check the videos, check the statements of Masaka. Masaka is a different Muhoozi. He's no longer acting like president in waiting, my next president. Now he is acting like he's like an envoy of President Museveni to Masaka. He emphasizes support government programs, don't vote corrupt leaders, support the president. So he focused attention on the president. In other words, I'm telling you that from Masaka, I knew something was going to happen that you've seen. But let's just take a break. This is KFM on Friday, telling you things most other radio stations would forget to say.
KFM's Hot Seat. 933. KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
So let's come back from the break. You're just the nick of time. You went off air, Rogers. This Jimmy there, and this is Frank Jimba, Frank the British. So people, I don't know, the public I know is very interested to hear, especially from KFM, about this Muhoozi thing. Yes, you might, okay, I can summarize a few of the week's events. There's been the sacking of Anderson Burora, the RCC of Ruwaga, over his statements about Anita Mong. In another week, this would have been a whole 15 minutes of its own. Then there's this thing of the mix within NUP. over Joel Senyoni, Puga and all that. That's been multi headlines and whatnot, and that would have been this whole segment. Then there is the by-election in Dokolo, which itself on another week, if it wasn't for Muhoozi and this cabinet reshuffle, would have been a whole story. So you can see what an action-packed week it's been. Who of you wants
So you can focus on, since you know a lot about Muhoozi, maybe listeners would love
Yes, the listeners, knowing the Monitor is, the Monitor is the number one most visited website in Uganda of any kind, including telecoms and all. And I'm not saying it's not because I am here at this place because I can't say KFM, but the Monitor, that paper, is the number one most visited of any kind. Uganda newspapers, radio stations, music sites, etc. So people turn to the Monitor for things of a certain kind, and the insider most information. So I guess, to be fair to the audience, the general talk of by top story in the country. So anyway, to go back to this question, who would be, if theoretically Muhoozi were not, as some of you think I'm hinting, not necessarily going to be a success as it seemed to be 5, 10, even 4 years ago, who could be? Then once again, I come back to my piecing things together. Muhoozi Kainerugaba goes to Charlotte to Masakat hold that jamboree of theirs. On that same day, and noticed by very few people, Norbert Mao, the Minister of Justice, flies to Addis Ababa with Odrik Robogo to meet the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed. Of course, on the surface, we say, well, he went to Mao, Odrik went to accompany Mao, fine. And once again, like I've told you, in Ugandan politics, it's not the leader, the chairman of the High Command, Yusuf Lay, it's the vice chairman, Luka. So, as I was saying on Twitter today, the person who was really sent to Addis Ababa by that High Command that sits in the Victoria High Command stroke family was Odrik. But it looks funny for you to appear in Addis Ababa in these countries that have formal institutions and you say, I'm the president's son-in-law, so what's this? So you need to send somebody who seems to be a government official. So in other words, Odrik Robogo, according to me anyway, was sent to meet the Prime Minister of Israel and deliver a message from President Museveni, and he was accompanied by Norbert Mao, not the other way around. And Norbert Mao is there to do what they did when they went to Kigali last year for Muhoozi's birthday party, to give it a semblance of government-to-government interaction. Not Muhoozi arriving with the Mwendas and all this group of PLE dropouts. Sorry to abuse the name of PLE, but that's what it seems to be. So anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that now let me just be blunt about this. If they switch off office station forever, fine. But there seems to be, there are two branches within that first family, and they're testing two balloons. Do we make it Odrik, or do we make it Muhoozi? For many years, originally, the original plan A was, of course, Muhoozi, naturally. But Muhoozi starts antagonizing his family, so they start thinking, maybe plan B. I mean, even Kim Kardashian, loving and patient as she was, she just got tired eventually of the antics of Kanye West. So the idea was this. So let me ask another question. What's this new group called? The one I'm calling PLU.
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 Yes, what's the full name?
Patriotic League of Uganda.
Do you, going back through Uganda's history in the last 5 or 7, maybe 8 years, have you noticed the person who's been pushing this patriotism business has been who? Odrik. Notice. Patriotism clubs, patriotism, that's been Odrik's main story.
But it's been a message of the president.
No, I'm saying that the person most pushing that agenda of patriotism has been Odrik Robogo. And then suddenly the MK group changed its name and takes that name patriotism. Why do they do that? Now this is a kind of exam question we really need in Uganda, not just yes, Jimmy. Why do you think, and go on, Jimmy.
But your relations with Odrik,
No, relations with just
you see,
you know what I'm trying to tell you now, let me help you conclude this thought. The thought is this. Now stop that paper. Let an authority tell you. So in other words,
I don't know what you're driving for.
I can drive straight to the point. On the day Muhoozi massacre, Odrik Robogo is flown to Addis Ababa. The family is testing the two brand logos. Do we have the blue-green? Do we have the red? Do we have the lion or the cheetah? So one say which works with the crowds and what not. So the family is trying to test those two options, Odrik or Robogo. For many years it was obviously
Odrik
or Muhoozi.
So when you say the family is trying to test which and which,
Because
who are you pointing at in the family? Are you
Who has an
trying to
upper
say
hand now?
that the president is losing grip of his family?
No. The president actually has what you call a group of his family, and in fact, these changes I'm talking about are the worry. In other words, as long as you Ugandans are out there making noise and squabbling among each other, NRM ministers and MPs included, that's fine. As long as we, this solid entity, the one that sits at Rokitoro on Christmas Day and takes part in that group photo, that true heart of Museveni's emotions and government
So
and
must
authority,
Uganda be
that's fine.
reduced to that?
But that's what it has become, wasn't it? Eyadema and Omar Bongo, why don't we know? Gaddafi, all these governments here. So in other words, the UNLA High Command of the Museveni government is the first family.
But you see, Tim, what I don't understand, they are two different individuals. Now, the thing is, because you're saying that the family is distancing itself from Hosi.
I'm not saying, I'm just asking how come they don't appear at
They
those
do
rallies.
not appear maybe where he is. And
And I'm saying if they categorically supported him
Yes,
as a
yes,
successor, and that was inside information from the family, don't you think all these 2 years, at least Natasha
I
would
don't
have
think
turned up?
I don't think if the person you're saying has aspirations of becoming a president, it should be hinged on the behavior of the first son.
No.
Honestly, I don't see how that comes out.
Well, that's then that
What is the
means you
problem?
don't see.
What is the problem with? If they both have aspirations, what is the problem with both coming out and Ugandans vote who they want?
So what I'm
what's
telling
what's
you,
wrong with that?
so nothing wrong, but I'm saying that
Okay.
now explains why this
But
thing you're saying.
they cannot come out directly. What came is the observation, reading what's taking place. They cannot come
because
out directly.
still,
that
Tim,
we own Uganda.
I also,
You guys
I also
should give me my
disagree.
own
I also
monitor
disagree.
podcast.
I also
And I-
disagree with that.
Yes.
I'll show you that the Baganda, the structure of Uganda, the princes do not stay with the king in the same enclosure. Why? Because
Yes,
as
yes.
people, they have lusts for the throne. So it is not bad. For me, I don't see any problem
I've said
with
nothing
it.
about bad.
Exactly, I don't see any problem with it. People having desires to become president within the first family.
No,
but I'll still go back to what Frank said.
But
that
see what
to
happened-
be
yes, but what
ahead.
happened- no. Like I said, we know this idea of brothers, but it's a different thing. When brothers start, when within the family begin those tensions, it creates what we now know. You could see, like I said, when you go out there, you start blasting your brother-in-law.
It's okay, but then let's see how the president is handling it.
So the way he's
So we
handling it,
say-
so this is what I'm telling you, this is exactly how he's handling it.
Tim, I don't want you to make me believe your
Tim is reading
conspiracy
that
theories.
Tim is
But
reading.
yeah. But for me, I'll end with what Frank said. I'll end with what Frank said,
Yes,
that
please conclude.
you need the army. That is one, and the appeal of
But
the
you
people.
And I don't know
Then
if
when
the
we
other
go
person
back
has
to
the-
the
the
history,
person
when
we're
we go
talking
back to
about.
the history of our country, the people that have come to lead after 66, the people that have associated closely with the army. Now, seeing the behavior of the president in this ruckus you are saying within the family, he is putting somebody that you're saying that is not the blue-eyed boy of the family closer to power. That is
but
the
he's
army.
not putting him. What I'm saying, the real Hosi power was this PLU and MK project. But anyway, times are not on our side, unfortunately for you people. That's why I need to create like a special podcast for people like me who know these things that go on. Who, when these people are having lunch in State House, this guy is a cook. Guys is a cook in State House. You think there's a cook there? Those are us, the moles from the monitor. The cook. Have a nice weekend, people. Interesting developments in Uganda this week and the coming weeks. Bye.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat Tonight.